Amazing test revealed hidden truths. Millionaire's 2 black cards exposed his ex-fiancée and nanny. Tyler Bennett leaned against his sleek marble kitchen counter, his fingers twitching nervously over his phone. Just hours earlier, he had submitted to a simple DNA test, a decision as casual as picking up ice cream on a Saturday night. But now, that same test had unraveled the tightly woven threads of his life. The results were in, and everything he thought he knew about his family had been flipped on its head. Christine, his perfect ex-fiancée, and Leah, the devoted nanny who had filled his home with warmth, were at the center of a storm he never saw coming. Staring at the screen, the words blurred together like ink running on wet paper. It felt surreal, impossible. Desperate, he tried to swallow the knot in his throat, but it wouldn't budge. Anger surged within him, mixing with confusion like oil and water. He once envisioned a life overflowing with success defined by loyalty and devotion. How could both women be connected by secrets he never imagined? How could they betray him so profoundly? Tyler tucked the phone into his pocket and glanced out through the sliding glass doors at the palm trees, swaying gently in the California breeze. His backyard was alive with the aroma of barbecues firing up for the weekend, oblivious to his inner turmoil. The laughter of children echoed from the street, a periphery that felt like it belonged to another world. He had built an empire on trust. Each app, each line of code resonated with authenticity. Yet now, he felt like a fraud in the very kingdom he had created. His thoughts raced as the scenario unfolded in his mind. Christine had always embodied elegance and brightness. Her laughter was the soundtrack of his dreams. Leah, on the other hand, was the steady rock of support, reminding him of the reasons he worked tirelessly. But the whispers of betrayal twisted in his gut like a slow poison, amplifying feelings of grief. What truths were they hiding? A shared history of lies? A connection he never understood? Before he could spiral deeper into doubt, a notification interrupted him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Shaking the dread off his mind, Tyler's internal monologue spun wildly. Could he confront Christine? Should he approach Leah first? Or would that put her loyalty in jeopardy? Sweat broke out on his brow as he weighed each potential encounter. The anger threatened to consume him while guilt slithered in. What did he even know about either woman beyond the roles they played? In that moment, the facade of his perfect life began to crumble as Tyler felt the crushing weight of impending confrontation. He stood at the precipice of choice, his resolve melting like the sun-soaked asphalt outside. Each option before him meant digging deeper, exposing himself to more pain and perhaps even more betrayal. Then just as Tyler began to gather his thoughts, an incoming text lit up the screen. Another photo, a revealing image that sent shockwaves through his already shredded identity. What had he uncovered this time? The possibility of his own shattered existence pulled at him like a tidal current. With his breath caught in his throat, Tyler realized he was spiraling toward a truth that could redefine everything he held dear. Was he ready to face it? The stakes were higher than ever, and retreating wasn't an option anymore. It was one last chance to confront the lies before everything fell into chaos. Tyler's heart raced as he finally turned toward his reflection in the glossy surface of the fridge. There, a stranger stared back at him, a man cracked open and exposed, lines of tension threading through his brow. It was time for action. No matter what had transpired, the time spent wondering was over. He had devoted years to his career, and now he needed the same determination to unravel the deception that surrounded him. He pulled his phone back out, hands steadying as he went through his contacts. His first instinct was to reach out to Christine, but doubt gnawed at him. What could he say? Words would be weapons against a memory of love and happiness. Yet every second spent delaying would only tighten the vice around his chest. In a surge of resolve, he opened a message thread with Leah instead. She had always been his confidant, the voice of reason amid the chaos that life often offered. As he wrote, his fingers hovered over the screen, unsure if he was inviting clarity or setting a trap for himself. I need to talk. Now. After sending the message, an unnerving stillness enveloped him. He paced, trying to air out the growing anticipation. Leah had a way about her, a calming presence somehow wrapped around a steely core. Yet as he glanced at the clock, doubt crept in again, tightening around his throat. Moments later, his phone buzzed with a reply. Okay, I'm on my way. There was no turning back now. Tyler wanted to prepare himself somehow, to mask how deeply this moment weighed on him. Instead, each tick of the second hand echoed louder, dragging him deeper into what felt like an abyss of uncertainty. He took a quick look around the house, the frames of memories, the polished surfaces reflecting a life he had meticulously crafted. But right now, every item felt grotesque, a facet of a facade more grand than his current reality warranted. When the doorbell rang, he felt a rush of adrenaline, forcing him into motion. With a deep inhalation, he opened the door. Leah stood there, her expression carefully neutral. She was always good at keeping a straight face, and amid his turmoil, that steadiness was unsettling. Tyler, is everything okay? She asked, stepping inside. He motioned her to the living room, tension electrifying the air. He swallowed hard, bracing against the weight of the truth. No, Leah. Everything isn't okay. This was the moment he had to seize. He felt that palpable urgency swelling inside him. I took a DNA test, and I got the results. The words fell heavily between them. Her eyes widened, shifting swiftly to a mixture of concern and something deeper. What do you mean? I don't understand everything yet, he continued, forcing himself to maintain eye contact. But it connects you and Christine in ways I can't even begin to comprehend. Silence wrapped around them, thick and suffocating. Then Leah took a small step forward, her voice steady but soft. We all have secrets, Tyler. Some are more painful to reveal than others. His breath caught, and the restless conflict within him surged higher. What does that mean? What have you been hiding? Leah's gaze dropped for a fleeting moment, a crack in her steady facade. It sparked something in him, a nagging intuition that perhaps this secret wasn't just hers to bear, but theirs to confront together. He continued to push, refusing to let the moment slip into ambiguity. I deserve answers, Leah. I deserve to know the truth, he pressed, even as doubt turned his stomach. The silence stretched, and Tyler realized he was standing at a pivotal crossroads, not just in this conversation, but in his life. The walls felt as though they were closing in, the pressure rising. Leah took a deep breath, and for a split second, Tyler thought he could see the weight of the world on her shoulders. Finally, she spoke. All right. But you need to be ready for what I'm about to say. As he braced himself for the tidal wave of revelation that awaited him, Tyler's mind spun wildly. What if the truths buried beneath layers of deception shattered even the remnants of his earlier resolve? Could he face what lay ahead? The moment had arrived, and as Leah took a step toward enlightenment, he sensed the ground shift below him. Everything was about to change, and he realized he was no longer just confronting others. He was standing on the precipice of understanding the man he had become. The air in the room thickened as Leah prepared to speak. Every lingering moment spun out like a taut string ready to snap. Tyler's heart drummed in his ears, drowning out the quiet ticking of the clock. This was it. The moment that could either repair the fractures in his life or send him spiraling further into chaos. He felt the ground beneath him trembling, echoing the uncertain terrain of his emotions. Tyler, Leah began, her voice wavering slightly. This isn't just about family ties. It ties back to choices made long before either of us could comprehend their impact. He focused intently, urging her to continue. With each passing second, he could feel the weight of unaddressed truths pressing down on him. This was not merely about Christine or the links revealed through his DNA test. It was about him confronting his own past. Your mother. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. She and Christine. They were close friends, Tyler. They shared more than just a connection as families. They were intertwined in ways I didn't understand until now. Tyler's mind reeled. Memories flickered. Summer barbecues, laughter echoing through their homes, moments where he had seen them share secrets. But what could have been so significant that it spurred this web of deceit? Leah continued, her eyes locking onto his. There was a family decision made a long time ago, one that would change the course of both your lives. I don't know all the details, but I know Christine had her reasons. I think she had to protect you. No, to protect all of us. Protect, he echoed incredulously. The notion shattered with a crack of anger in his throat. Protect us from what? From the truth. Tyler, sometimes the truth is more dangerous than the lie. Her statement struck him like a blow. The concept dug its teeth into his skin as he contemplated the harsh reality. Truth had been elusive not because it was convoluted, but because it was buried under fear. What if digging deeper exposed more than secrets? What if this truth redefined his very foundation? How can I trust you? He didn't mean to sound accusatory, but the rawness of his confusion slipped into his tone. You can trust me because I've been here supporting you through everything, Leah replied firmly. I care about you and your well-being. As much as this is about family dynamics, it's about our lives right now. You need to decide if you want to keep living behind that mask you've been wearing. Her words hung there like an invitation, one that required him to step beyond the safety of his choices and into the unknown. Suddenly, Tyler felt the urge to push forward, the dread of remaining stagnant clawing at him. With a newfound determination, he resolved to confront Christine directly but realized he couldn't do it blind. He needed to unveil every hidden aspect of his life. I will find the answers, Leah. I owe it to myself, he declared, a current of assertiveness igniting his spirit. Leah nodded, but her expression reflected her concern. Just be careful, Tyler. The closer you get to the truth, the more painful it can become. With a passion ignited in him, Tyler's mind raced to create a plan. He needed to confront Christine and dig into her past, not just to receive answers, but also to discover the man who had been obscured by a web of lies. The very essence of who he was depended on it. As he moved into this uncharted territory, he resolved to remain open-minded. An inner voice urged him to prepare for the repercussions, to embrace any outcome. Just then, his phone buzzed again, cutting through his thoughts. A message from Christine. The 3 simple words that appeared on the screen sent a chill down his spine. We need to talk. The stakes had suddenly risen higher than he had anticipated, and without hesitation, he grabbed his jacket. The conversation with Leah had lit a fusion of determination within him. As he stepped out into the world, he couldn't shake the sense that everything was about to revolutionize. The shadows of the past had awakened, and now, Tyler was ready to face whatever truth awaited him. Tyler's feet carried him down the street with an urgency he hadn't felt in years. Each step resonated with a surge of determination woven with apprehension. The weight of the conversation with Leah hung heavily on his mind, the contours of his reality shifting beneath his feet like sand. The sun hung low, casting long shadows that mirrored the secrets looming in his past. As he approached Christine's apartment, he took a moment to brace himself. He straightened his jacket, inhaling deeply. This meeting promised not only revelations, but challenges he couldn't yet fully fathom. Yet the deeper he delved into his thoughts, the more urgency ignited within him. He couldn't afford to let fear dictate his actions any longer. Tyler knocked on the door, a sharp rap echoing in the stillness. When Christine opened it, her expression was inscrutable. The gloss of surprise melted quickly into something more guarded, setting the tone for the conversation. For a moment, they stood in silence, both grappling with the weight of unspoken words. Tyler, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect you to come so soon. Neither did I, honestly, he replied, stepping inside. The familiar scent of her home, lavender and something sweet, was both comforting and triggering. He had loved this place once, but now it felt like a stage where painful truths would be unfurled. Have a seat, Christine offered, her tone shifting to one of cautious hospitality. Tyler declined the invitation to sit, opting instead to anchor himself firmly on his own 2 feet, his heart thumping in rhythm with a long-buried anxiety. I want the truth. The words spilled from him with unexpected force. About everything. Us. Your past. The decisions that have affected my life. The resolve behind his voice surprised even him, pushing back against the tides of doubt threatening to engulf him. Christine's posture stiffened visibly. I didn't want to hurt you, Tyler. I thought by keeping these things hidden I was protecting you. Protecting me from what? He pressed, his frustration bubbling to the surface. Every day has been clouded by this mystery. A mystery you created. She carried the weight of years as her eyes filled with unshed tears. What I did, the choices I made, came from a place of desperation. I wished to shield you from the stark truth about your family, about my connection to them. With each word, Tyler felt the tension stretch taut. He could sense the complex emotional landscape unfolding between them. Just tell me, he urged, his voice softening. I need to understand. After a pause that seemed to stretch forever, Christine exhaled slowly, as if letting go of a burdensome secret. Your mother and I were more than friends. We were family in a way, but our lives intertwined in darkness. I couldn't let you bear the consequences of that connection. His pulse raced, the rush of overwhelm mingling with a burgeoning curiosity. What kind of darkness? Your mother made choices I never understood until it was too late. Choices involving betrayal and sacrifices. She chose to raise you away from the truth, to give you a life separate from the reality we lived. Christine's gaze dropped, and Tyler realized he was losing her to guilt. Are you saying my life is built on lies? He barely managed to articulate, the enormity of her admission pushing against his chest like a vice. It wasn't what your mother intended, she replied, her voice thick with emotion. She just wanted to protect you from the legacy of pain. The revelation clicked into place, but instead of clarity, it shattered his already fragile sense of self. Tyler felt a tumult of anger, sorrow, and a wild need to reclaim his narrative. Why should I believe any of this, he challenged. This could all be just another lie. What choice do you have? Christine asked, a touch of defiance coloring her voice. You can seek the truth buried within the family, or continue living a fabricated existence. Tyler took a step back, battling the churning chaos in his thoughts. It felt like everything he had known was crumbling before him. He wanted to scream or fight back, but the gravity of her words held him immobile, grappling with the new identity he was forced to consider, the son of secrets bound by decisions he never made. Look, Tyler, you owe it to yourself to seek the truth. If you don't, you'll always wonder. Christine continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. The fateful crossroads loomed before him, one path leading toward acceptance of a manipulated identity, the other toward a pursuit for clarity that could either liberate him or devastate everything he once believed. Tyler knew he had to choose, but as he stood there, uncertainty hung in the air like the last note of a haunting melody. As he stared into Christine's eyes, searching for answers yet to be revealed, he felt the iron grip of destiny tightening around him. What had once been a flicker of hope was now an inferno of resolve churning inside him. The reckoning was only beginning, and for the first time he understood he might not just be uncovering family mysteries. He might be rediscovering who he truly was. An unexpected journey shaped by past choices. As the minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity, he braced himself for the response bubbling up between them, fully aware that this confrontation had awakened something far more profound than he had imagined. Tyler's thoughts spiraled in tandem with the tension thickening the air around him. He sensed the weight of Christine's gaze on him. It felt heavy with expectation and fear. As he prepared to respond, he instinctively shifted his weight from one foot to the other, the uncertainty of the moment fueling his adrenaline. Why now? He demanded, his voice steadier than he felt. Why are you telling me all this at this point in my life? Christine's eyes narrowed slightly, wrestling with her own emotions. Because you need to take control of your own story, Tyler. You're at a precipice. This is where you decide who you want to be, not just who you've been told to be. His heart raced, her words resonated deeply. It was a challenge he hadn't anticipated, yet it ignited something within him, a flicker of rebellion against the life crafted from shadows. This was not just about the truth of his family. This was about unearthing his chosen identity. Then what do I do next? He probed, the urgency returning to his voice. If I seek this truth, what guarantees do I have that it won't tear me apart? None, Christine admitted, her frankness surprising him. But the guarantee of remaining in ignorance is worse. It's time you decided what lies you're willing to accept and which ones you're willing to dismantle. He breathed deeply, the weight of the conversation pressing down like a shroud. The notion of confronting his mother's past, diving into the murky waters of family secrets felt daunting, but the thought of remaining stagnant terrified him even more. What if I find out things I'm not ready to hear? He whispered, vulnerable for the first time. Questions swirled in his mind, piercing through the bravado he had built up. He had spent so long constructing a facade of confidence, and the possibility of that collapsing left his insides churning. Then you face them, Christine replied, her voice unwavering, steadying him. You have the strength for growth inside you, Tyler. It might hurt, but it will also set you free. Free to define who you are on your own terms. Her conviction stirred something within him, an ember of determination. The path ahead would be perilous, rife with uncertainty, but the potential for self-discovery called out louder than ever before. He could feel the flicker of possibility igniting an urgency he had almost forgotten. I want to know about my mother's choices, he asserted, his tone shifting from doubt to determination. I'm willing to confront whatever shadows lie ahead. Good, Christine nodded encouragingly. Start with your mother's acquaintances, people who knew her well. They might reveal perspectives that will bring clarity. He thought for a moment, considering the names that popped into his head. Friends, colleagues, the old neighbors who often spoke to him when he was a child. As he mentally catalogued each, a sense of purpose began to coalesce around the chaos. I'll need to approach them carefully, he murmured, outlining his tentative plan. Maybe there are letters or documents I can investigate too. The notion of piecing together his mother's history, one fragment at a time, felt empowering. Christine regarded him with something akin to relief. Perhaps she sensed the shift in his spirit, the transition from a passive recipient of truth to an active seeker. That's right. Do it on your own timeline, but don't back down. Let the truth surface. With each passing moment, clarity began to replace the knots of fear in his stomach. Perhaps he was bound for disappointment, but he was also on the brink of personal transformation. He nodded, more to himself than to her. I won't be that child left in the dark anymore. I'll shine my own light, however daunting that may be. As he stepped away from the doorway and into the unexpected journey ahead, the air felt charged with the possibility of newfound identity. Leaving Christine's apartment, he felt a renewed sense of control starting to unfold within him. Each step he took solidified his resolve. He was not merely a pawn in someone else's story. He would become the author of his own. But just as he sank into contemplation, a sudden thought crossed his mind. If Christine had concealed so much, who else from his past might hold secrets? The gravitational pull of family ties and unspoken legacies now loomed larger than before, and Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the edge of unearthing something far greater, extending beyond his mother alone. He paused at the curb, glancing up at the sky, and a single question crystallized in his mind. What if the answers he sought could lead to someone completely unexpected? And just as that thought settled, he was already formulating a plan for how to track down the connections within his family he barely understood. With renewed determination, Tyler's next move would not just bend the arc of his own story, it could alter the very fabric of those around him. The road ahead seemed treacherous, yet he felt almost exhilarated by the uncertainty. The real tests were just beginning. The crisp air bit at Tyler's cheeks as he stepped into the bustling street, a far cry from the stillness he had left behind in Christine's apartment. Deep in thought, he struggled to transform the fire ignited within him into actionable steps. The thrill of purpose surged through his veins, propelling him forward, even as hesitations flickered at the edges of his mind. With a steadying breath, he recalled the names he had mentally catalogued. He needed a plan, tangible, well-defined. Perhaps Loretta, his mother's old neighbor, who had always been full of friendly gossip. There was also Sam from his mother's workplace. If anyone would know the inner workings of her life, it might be him. He pulled out his phone, sending a quick message to Loretta, asking for a moment to catch up. As he walked, the buildings blurred around him, but every step was deliberate. He could feel the ground shifting beneath him as if he were stepping onto a tightrope. Each connection he sought, each question he intended to ask, became a thread pulling him towards the truth. However, doubts grappled at the back of his mind, whispering inadequacies. What if he wasn't equipped to confront whatever shadows swirled in his family's history? He pushed those thoughts aside. This was not the time for retreat. Arriving at a local cafe where they had often shared casual chats, Tyler felt a surge of nostalgia mixed with apprehension. Finding Loretta would feel like opening a door to his childhood. Would she have answers, or merely deepen the mystery? Settling into a quiet corner with a view to the entrance, he was hyper-aware of his heartbeat, each thud urging him to act. When Loretta arrived, she seemed much the same as he remembered. Her warm smile eased some of the tension, but as they exchanged pleasantries, he sensed an undercurrent, something unspoken lingering between them. "It's been so long, Tyler," she began, her tone friendly, yet a shadow of concern flitted across her features. "How's your mom?" He hesitated, that question piercing straight to the core of his purpose. "Well, actually, I'm here to ask about her. I'm looking into some things about her past, things that seem to have been kept hidden." The light flickered from Loretta's eyes to a deeper shade of apprehension. "Hidden?" "Tyler, you know some memories are better left untouched." The caution in her voice tangled with his growing determination. He needed to push through the reluctance that wrapped around her. "I appreciate that, Loretta, but I need to understand who she really was. Can you help me?" She sighed, looking away for a moment as if summoning the strength to recount the past. "Your mother was complicated. She had dreams, Tyler. Dreams that didn't align with what the world expected of her." Every word ignited his curiosity further, mingling with an unsettling fear of what revelations lay ahead. "What do you mean? What didn't she tell me?" With a heavy heart, Loretta began to unravel the threads. She had friends in places you wouldn't believe, and some of them weren't who they seemed. Your mother was caught in a world full of choices that could break a person. Tyler felt a shiver run through him, not from the cold outside but from the weight of her words. This was the truth he sought, but with every revelation, he sensed the haunting shadows of unresolved feelings encroaching. As the conversation continued, the past painted a portrait of a woman he barely recognized. A blend of ambition and regret, each detail pricking at his resolve. What had his mother sacrificed? And at what cost to her family? Just as he began processing all that was laid out before him, Loretta dropped another truth into the mix. "You should talk to Angela too, a mutual friend. She may have some stories that would surprise you, and not in a good way." Tyler's heart quickened. Angela. Another piece of the puzzle that could potentially hold the key to understanding his mother's double life. The idea of seeking Angela sent a spark of dread racing through him, but that dread transformed into a fierce determination. He was ready for the next step. Ready to expose himself to potential heartbreak if it meant understanding his mother and by extension himself. Leaving the cafe, he felt the gravity of the journey intensify, transforming fear into fierce resolve. He would confront whatever lay hidden. Nothing could remain buried any longer. With thoughts swirling, he faced the sidewalk anew. Confronting Angela would be the ultimate test, and the lingering question of what he might uncover tightened its grip on his heart. The only certainty was that he could no longer shy away from the truths. He was becoming the architect of his own healing. As he set out, one thought echoed above the rest. Would the next conversation mark a turning point, or would it plunge him deeper into uncertainty? The shadows were growing long, and within them lurked the potential for both revelation and heartache. Tyler's steps quickened as he transitioned from the familiar sidewalk to a street that felt starkly unfamiliar. The urgency to confront Angela burned within him, fueled by the pieces of his mother's hidden life that had spilled over in his conversation with Loretta. The thought of secrets festering in the corners of his family's history was no longer something he could ignore. It had become a matter of personal integrity and understanding. He considered the implications of what he might learn from Angela. Would she validate Loretta's revelations or upend everything he thought he knew about his mother? The tension in his chest tightened with each thought, transforming curiosity into trepidation. He arrived at Angela's apartment, one he had jestingly referenced as a metaphor for adulting. The door stood ajar, and he could hear the soft melody of an old vinyl playing in the background. Chuckling nervously, he knocked lightly, pushing against the door as it swung open. "Tyler!" Angela exclaimed, her smile bright but tinged with confusion. "What a surprise. Come in." The warmth of her greeting encompassed him, but as he stepped inside the disheveled room, the vibrant colors of the decor seemed to dull, mirroring his darkening thoughts. He knew the only purpose of this visit would lead to painful truths, yet he had initiated his own discomfort, leading him to this very moment. "Is everything okay?" Angela asked, her brow furrowed as she took in his somber demeanor. "I need to talk about my mom," he stated plainly, feeling the weight of his words settle between them. The room fell silent. The familiar staccato of the vinyl echoed as Angela shifted, revealing a vulnerability he hadn't anticipated. "Tyler, Loretta mentioned you might have some insight into her life," he interrupted, his voice rising slightly, desperate for clarity. Angela drew a deep breath. "Your mother had a life before you, things she never quite reconciled with. There were choices." She hesitated, the implication of her words hanging in the air like a guillotine. "Tell me," Tyler urged, driven by an insatiable need for answers. "What were those choices?" Angela's gaze dropped to the floor. She was drawn into circles that weren't safe, friends who had their own agendas. I sometimes think she believed she could change them, that she could find a way to be both a mother and the person she wanted to be. Each word created a ripple of disbelief within him. The woman he saw as a caretaker now morphed into a figure battling against her own demons. Tyler felt his frustration mounting. But she kept it hidden. "Why didn't she just tell me?" Angela met his gaze, her expression softened. "She loved you. She thought by hiding her past she was protecting you. But secrets have a way of distorting love." The sting of Angela's honesty cut deeper than he expected. He had reluctantly accepted some of his mother's flaws, yet the notion that love could also imprison was a harsh pill to swallow. He began to question if that same love had created the illusion that kept him blind to the dangers surrounding his mother. "So are there still connections from her past? Anyone else I should reach out to?" Tyler's voice quivered, caught between desperation and determination. Angela hesitated again, weighing her words. "There may be one person, but it's a risk. He's not someone you can trust." Tyler clenched his jaw, processing the implications. "I'm willing to take that risk. I need to understand who she really was. The good and the bad." Feeling the charge of his resolve, Tyler prepared to face whatever challenge lay ahead. The irony of delving into darkness to unearth light was not lost on him. Sometimes, excavating buried treasures required navigating treacherous waters. He stood at a precipice of change, arms outstretched to confront his fate. "His name is Marcus," Angela finally revealed, her tone dropping to a whisper. "If anyone can provide answers, it's him. But I warn you, he may complicate what you learn." The name echoed in his mind like an incantation. Marcus. The tension shifted palpably in the room as Tyler contemplated his next step. Would connecting with Marcus deepen his understanding, or would it unlock more hidden pains? The path ahead twisted and turned, yet Tyler felt a fierce determination surging within him. In pursuit of his mother's truth, he was ready to confront the complications of his past, no matter the cost. He took a deep breath, looking toward the door. His next meeting with Marcus awaited, promising revelations both haunting and illuminating. Would the truth finally free him, or ensnare him further into a labyrinth of complexity? He stepped back outside, the cool air stinging against his cheeks, invigorating his senses for the challenges ahead. The shadows were closing in, and within them, the answer to his unasked questions beckoned enticingly. As Tyler ventured down the street, each step was laden with the burden of uncertainty. The air felt charged with potential, a mix of exhilaration and dread swirling within him. The clarity of his intent didn't diminish the fragile feeling of fear that clutched at his gut. Who was Marcus? What truths would he uncover? The need for answers burned hotter than the anxiety that crept at the edges of his thoughts. He arrived at a dilapidated building, its windows blurred with age and neglect. The disparity between the outside and what he hoped to find within struck him as ironic. Determined to pierce this facade, he pushed the door open and stepped into a dimly lit hallway. The decor was an unsettling mix of chaos. Scattered papers and mismatched furniture told stories of a disjointed life. Tyler felt a tug of apprehension. This could be another layer of the murky complexity that surrounded his mother's history. He glanced at his reflection in a cracked mirror and saw a man teetering on the edge of revelation and despair. As he made his way to the apartment at the end of the hall, he reflected on the urgency of his pursuit. Curiosity spiraled into a desperate need for resolution. With a hesitant knock, he waited. An unsettling silence lingered before the door cracked open, revealing Marcus. The man's presence was a stark contrast to his environment. There was an air of confidence about him, threading the line between enigmatic charm and an untrustworthy aura. Tyler took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation ahead. "Marcus," he said, attempting to suppress the nervous tremor in his voice. "I'm here about my mother." The flicker of recognition in Marcus's eyes was immediate, darkening with the weight of unspoken memories. With a curt nod, he stepped aside, gesturing for Tyler to enter. Inside, the dim light cast long shadows that danced along the walls, creating an atmosphere heavy with secrets. "What do you want to know?" he queried, settling into a worn-out chair. "I want to know who she really was," Tyler replied, searching Marcus's face for any hint of the truth. "Angela said you could help, that you knew things she hid from me." Marcus hesitated. "Your mother was complicated," he began slowly, the words slipping out like a reluctant confession. "She wanted to be someone, to rise above the choices she made in her past. But driving her decisions were people who would twist affection into manipulation." Each sentence roused a visceral reaction in Tyler. He felt a storm brewing inside him, a tumult of anger, betrayal, and sorrow. Pictures of his mother's face, once warm and nurturing, began to shatter, revealing a fragmented identity of decisions he couldn't comprehend. "What do you mean by manipulation?" Tyler pushed, his voice tense as he sought clarity amidst the chaos. "What kind of people?" Marcus leaned forward, the gravity of the moment evident. "She was drawn into a world that fed on weakness. You were her motivation to break free, but the past doesn't let go easily. There were relationships, entanglements that threatened everything she built for you." Tyler's heart raced. The notion that his mother had fought her demons so valiantly, all while concealing the truth from him, was a revelation that gnawed at his soul. "Did she ever mention any names?" he pressed, desperate to piece together this fragmented puzzle. With unsettling precision, Marcus lifted his gaze and met Tyler's eyes. "She spoke of people, but never by name. Fear, perhaps? Fear of what they might do if she were to reveal them." A chill coursed through Tyler. This was a revelation both empowering and debilitating. Could he confront these ghosts of his mother's past? The very notion felt like stepping onto a razor's edge. One misstep could lead to destruction. Yet the drive for understanding surged within him, compelling him. "I need to know who these people are," Tyler declared, his voice firm. "If I'm to understand my mother, if I'm to find closure, I have to confront her past, no matter the cost." Marcus's laughter was low and almost mocking. "You think it's that easy? The closer you get, the more tangled you'll become. You might not like what you find. Tyler stood at a crossroads. Would the pursuit of knowledge be worth the potential fallouts? Ignoring the weight of Marcus's warning, he nodded resolutely. He was tired of living in shadows. He needed the truth to step into the light, even if it hurt. As he left the apartment, the door clicked shut behind him, a final sound marking the beginning of an arduous journey into his mother's past. The swirling storm of emotions had transformed into a defined path of pursuit, beckoning him forward. His resolve surged within him even as uncertainty loomed. What had he truly unleashed by seeking the truth? He sensed the contours of his mother's pain stretching out before him, a twisted web entwined with himself, and a looming confrontation that awaited in the shadows. Would his quest for understanding finally yield clarity, or plunge him into deeper darkness? Determined, Tyler stepped out into the night air, ready to meet whatever waited ahead, unaware of the secrets lurking and the choices that would soon test his mettle. The night felt alive around him as Tyler stepped away from the grim structure, the shadows momentarily retreating from the light that glimmered just beyond the street. He moved down the sidewalk, each footfall echoing the clash of emotions within. The revelations from Marcus gnawed at his consciousness as he contemplated the fractured portrait of his mother, Angela. What truths lay buried beneath layers of secrecy and shadows? As he walked, he allowed himself a moment to collect his thoughts. Ambivalence gnawed at him. He had stepped into the treacherous path of unraveling a truth. If I'm to find closure, he had told Marcus. But what if that closure led him into deeper pain? Could he bear the weight of the realities that might surface? His phone buzzed in his pocket, the screen illuminating a message from his younger sister, Emily. Got a minute? Need to talk. The urgency rippled through him, momentarily distracting him from his internal turmoil. Should he call her? But no, he needed to focus, to prepare for what came next. Yet, a small nagging voice insisted that family ties were threads worth following, especially when navigating the unknown. His mother's past directly affected Emily too. He sighed, realizing that running away from their shared reality won't do any good for either of them. With a measured breath, he decided to turn around. He found her sitting at the kitchen table, swirling a spoon aimlessly in her untouched coffee. The remnants of worry painted her face as she looked up. "Hey, Tyler," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "What's going on?" he asked, pulling out a chair to sit across from her. "I overheard a conversation. It doesn't feel right," she confessed, her voice small. "People at school have been talking. About Mom. About those people." The particular words landed heavily between them. Tyler felt the steely grip of anxiety tighten around his chest. His sister's fear mirrored his own. "What do you mean?" he pressed, even as a sense of dread filled him. "Like, why she left. Why we hardly hear from her now," Emily murmured, her eyes darting to the side as if the truth lingered somewhere beyond their reach. "Everyone thinks there's a reason. Something bad happened." He internalized her words, sloshing them around as if they were an obscure liquid that could merge with the emerging perspective of their mother's life. "Did you hear any names?" Tyler's tone shifted, his mind racing with implications. Would they find each other's truths in the fragmented whispers? Emily hesitated, her expression shifting to one of apprehension. "I only caught bits. Something about her old friends, but it's not something I can trust, you know? Just rumors." The words rolled off her tongue delicately. "No," he interjected, a spark igniting within him. Rumors were often the seeds of deeper truths. They might lead somewhere, but we need to face this together. She frowned, concerns knitting her brows. "Tyler, it sounds dangerous. What if it backfires? What if it hurts us more?" "That's the risk we face by remaining deaf to our past, Em," he stated, conviction lacing his voice. "We owe it to ourselves, to understand who she was and what she went through." He realized that this quest was now bigger than just understanding their mother. It was about their shared history and how they might emerge from it, stronger together. Emily studied him, the hesitation lingering in the air, but Tyler could see the determination surfacing beneath her uncertainties. "Okay, but we need to be careful." Whatever we dig up, we handle it as a team, right? A sense of solidarity washed over him in that moment, transcending his own solitary battles. Absolutely, he affirmed, feeling a renewed purpose ignite within him. As they sat in their quiet kitchen, whispering plans and piecing together their shared resolve, Tyler grasped that it wasn't just the secrets of their mother's past that loomed ahead. They had now embarked on a journey that could define their futures. But the course ahead felt treacherous. Shadows of doubt flickered in the recesses of his mind. What if confronting the truth only led to fracture rather than healing? A chilling thought coiled in his gut as he recognized that confronting Angela's ghosts could unveil monsters they were neither prepared for nor strong enough to fight. Stepping outside moments later, the fresh air was charged with the unknown, a prelude to inevitable revelations ahead. Time was slipping, the clock ticking louder. The threads were unraveling, pulling them deeper into a maze of uncertainty. What awaited them as they endeavored into this veiled territory? Tyler controlled his breathing, his heart pounding, a mixture of fear and excitement coursing through his veins. Would the truth bind them closer, or tear them apart? The answer remained just out of reach, lurking in the corners beyond their understanding. Would he find the courage to face what lay ahead? The morning sun bathed Tyler in warm light as he stepped onto the balcony, the weight of unfinished business pressing heavily upon him. The conversations with Leah, Christine, and Angela still echoed in his head, vivid reminders of how little he truly understood his mother's life. The shadow of the unknown loomed larger, yet within him also stirred a string of resilience that had begun to form through the turmoil of revelation. Tyler glanced down at his phone. No new messages, but a sense of determination replaced the anxious flutter of uncertainty. Today was the day to confront the reality of his mother's choices and their impact on his family. Armed with the revelations from Angela, he resolved to meet with Marcus once more and delve deeper into that tangled web of their past. As he made his way toward Marcus's building, each step marked a different rhythm. This time it resonated with anticipation rather than fear. He could feel the turbulence of his emotions gradually settling into purpose, the desire for clarity overriding the apprehensions that had previously engulfed him. Upon arrival, Marcus opened the door with a bemused smile, clearly anticipating Tyler's return. "Back for more, I see," he quipped. "Let's cut to the chase," Tyler replied firmly, sensing he was no longer merely a passive player within this narrative. "I need to know everything about my mother's past, the people who influenced her decisions and shaped her choices." Marcus gestured for him to enter, the air thick with tension and unsaid truths. As conversations unfurled, Tyler no longer felt like a child confronting a seasoned adult. Instead, he stood as a man ready to uncover the reality of his roots, past decisions forged in the fires of choices far from his control. "Your mother was fiercely protective, perhaps to the point of unreason," Marcus began slowly, almost methodically, as if navigating through a minefield. "But there were conflicts that boiled beneath the surface, relationships that shaped her decisions in ways you can't imagine." "What relationships?" Tyler pressed, urgency bubbling to the surface, the thread of his mother's legacy twisting tighter around him. She found herself caught between loyalties. Friends who were not to be trusted, Marcus continued, weaving the narrative like a cautionary tale. Some of them harbored agendas that blurred the line between respect and harm. She thought she could save them. Her compassion often became her greatest weakness. Tyler felt a pang of empathy intersect with indignation as he absorbed the truths hidden from him for so long. "What about the names? Who should I know?" he demanded, no longer inquiring timidly but commanding his space in the conversation. "Greg and Lila." The names fell from Marcus's lips. They were essential figures in her life, sharper than knives, and they brought chaos into her world. "If you seek to understand the choices she made, you need to speak to them." Tyler felt an unsettling triumph surge within him. Exactly what he craved, a direction, a path illuminated by the shadows of his mother's decisions. For any clarity, confronting those figures became essential to his growth and a step in redefining his understanding of family. As he left Marcus's apartment, an amalgamation of emotions exhilarated him. Anger at the betrayals that had ensnared his mother, compassion for the burdens she had carried, and an unyielding desire to uncover the truth. The conversations had transformed him. No longer a passive recipient of whispers, Tyler felt himself shifting into an active participant in his own life, the threads of his identity intertwining with the realities he was unearthing. Days passed as he navigated through Craig's mundane wisdom and Lila's unsettling demeanor. Each encounter brought him closer to understanding not just his mother but himself. A winding road unveiled strength he was never aware he embodied. A silent resolution shaped by Julia's choices, facing fears once buried beneath layers of misunderstandings. With each revelation, Tyler embraced the acknowledgement of flaws and foibles that had defined his lineage. He was sketching a narrative anew, framing his path not as a product of deception, but a conscious choice toward authenticity. When he finally stepped away from Lila's imposing figure, having wrestled the truth from her tightly held grasp, Tyler felt reborn. "Your mother was as much a part of her past as you are of her present," she had said before he departed, her indifference failing to hide the truth beneath her barriers. "We are all shaped by those we associate with." Now Tyler stood at a bifurcation in his journey, a confluence of light and darkness. Summit and valley had served as metaphors throughout his life, but this time he was both the mountaineer and the landscape, confronting his past while ensuring his future would not be shackled by it. With full conviction, Tyler stepped onto the world outside his childhood memories. He felt not only the breeze of change but also the weight of assurance. It was a transformation birthed from shadows, once hidden but now embraced as guides, reminders that he could own his identity. He glanced at the horizon scintillating with potential, fully aware that it was not just his mother's past he had unraveled, but his own journey toward healing, a journey he had begun to write on his own terms. Solid in his understanding, Tyler grinned. This was no longer about the fractures of betrayal but the threads of resilience woven into something uniquely his, an authentic tapestry that celebrated complexity without fear. Clarity existed not through the erasure of the past but through embracing it in its entirety. Now Tyler felt an unshakable belief inside him. He had conquered not only the secrets, but the shadows lurking within himself, ready for a future bright with potential, yet lit by the lessons of the past. Embroidered within every nook and cranny of his identity was a sense of fulfillment. The transformation had propelled him toward a reality he would define, and ownership of his past was the ultimate prize, a foundation from which he would ascend. So, as he took his final steps into a life redefined, Tyler felt invincible, filled with purpose and relentless hope. Now, he whispered to the winds, this journey is just the beginning. If you resonate with Tyler's transformation, you need to subscribe now for more incredible stories of personal growth. This is the moment to show your support, so leave a like to feed the algorithm that brings these stories to life. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about Tyler's journey? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspirational conclusion. Your sincere interactions help us build a community that celebrates personal overcoming stories. Be a part of this journey.